Greetings, I am Chisra Baguhanito and I am going to deliver to you the part 2 of our report, Designing Digital Learning Environments. And before we will have to dig deeper regarding of what are those essential regarding of this discussion, let me present to you our aim for this discussion. First is describe the learning strategies used in the classroom. Second is we will going to also to discuss how to integrate the technology and media in our learning. Integrate media into learning, Describe the value of integrating free and expensive materials, because nowadays it is a key component to consider the cost of the materials before we will going to make of those and disseminate to our learners. And instructional material designers, it is our goal to understand how to select appropriate learning strategies and integrate effective use of technology and media to design digital learning environments. The first one is we will going to discuss the cooperative learning and how this cooperative learning is being integrated in our instructional materials. So to start, students can learn cooperatively not only by discussing text material and viewing media, but also by producing media of their own. The use of educational applications can be easily used by students that can accommodate cooperative grouping because of collaborative sharing. A guide to designers. To allow students to benefit from cooperative learning, be careful to establish rules for each member of the group. Collaborative learning is much as effective if each of the group members has a given task so that the experience from collaborative learning is much appreciated, such as facilitators or the teachers should assign, or the members itself of the group can assign as a team leader, recorder, and materials manager. This is able to move the groups to work together and helps them to express and address questions and ensuring that they are accomplishing the task. And another is the game as used in our integration of technology in our designing of instructional materials. Games used for educational purposes includes digital and paper-based crosswords, puzzles, Sudoku, and logic or brain teaser puzzles. Puzzles can be used to practice information such as spelling words and problem-solving skills with Sudoku games or strengthening thinking skills with jigsaw puzzles. Integrating games in education has been proven from the research conducted. The first advantage is the major rule of applying technology is to engage students and to encourage students to participate. The rule of the games in education posits that games play a vital role in building students' self-confidence. As educational tools, games are constructive as they live in teaching methods which are normally considered dull and boring. The engagement of students in this process encourage students to participate more. The use of games in education plays an important role in engaging students by encouraging a hands-on approach. Second, the use of games in education aims to help students to remember what they have learned as active participation in the learning process. Learning should not mean rote memorization, but students can use games to remember the critical points which they can apply in their examinations as well as in real-world situations. Third, this is something which is vital in light of the fact that we live in a world which is ruled by innovation. By playing games, students gain visual and computer literacy skills which will prepare them for the world of work. Fourth, rule following and problem solving skills. Games drills are based on rule following, and students are required to follow rules in order to achieve a high score and move to the next stage. Students can easily apply this knowledge in real-world situations as they are encouraged to think outside the box. Fifth, beneficial for students with attention disorders. Using games can help capture students' attention as this is considered to be a fun way of learning. Research has suggested that web-based games can assist kids who experience attention problems. 6, teach other skills. Games can also be used to teach other skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, sportsmanship, interaction, and collaboration with peers. This helps in creating less stifled individuals who are not limited but can adapt to any real-world situation. However, if games as integrated in instructional materials gives an advantage, it also gives disadvantage. The first disadvantage of integrating games in education, so we will now going to discuss the limitations of integrating games in the learning process. First is providing a platform for students to play revision games becomes a challenge when teachers or instructors cannot control such environment. Students can have access to other platforms which are harmful. Second, students who rely on games are often secluded from real-life interaction. So let us encourage students to have limitations regarding the games. Third, using computers and other electronic devices can cause health hazards such as eye strain and other physical problems. Fourth, the technologies required for full participation can be quite expensive, and this can create a gap between the students who have access to the technologies and those who do not have access. The third one is simulations. Simulations are instructional scenarios where the learner is placed in a world defined by the teacher. They represent a reality within which students interact. The teacher controls the parameters of this world and uses it to achieve their desired instructional results. Students experience the reality of the scenario and gather meaning from it. And a simulation is a form of experiential learning. It is strategy that fits well with the principles of student-centered and constructivist learning and teaching. Simulations take several forms. They may contain elements of a game or a role play on activity that acts as a metaphor. Simulations are characterized by their nonlinear nature and then controlled ambiguity within which students must make decisions. The inventiveness and commitment of the participants usually determines the success of a simulation. Why simulations? Simulations promote the use of critical and evaluative thinking because they are ambiguous or open-ended. They encourage students to contemplate the implications of a scenario. The situation feels real and thus leads to more engaging interaction by learners. Simulations promote concept attainment through experiential practice. They help students understand the nuances of a concept. Students often find them more deeply engaging than other activities, as they experience activity firsthand rather than hearing about it or seeing it. Third, simulations help students appreciate more deeply the management of the environment, politics, community, and culture. For example, by participating in a resource distribution activity, students might gain an understanding of inequity in society. Simulations can reinforce other skills indirectly, such as debating, a method associated with some large-scale simulations and research skills. But remember, when deciding which simulations will support your instructional goals, use guidelines or rubrics to assist you in rating your students' performance. Next is discovery. Discovery learning is a technique of inquiry-based learning and is also considered as a constructivist-based approach to education. It is also referred to as problem-based learning, experiential learning, and 21st century learning. It is supported by the work of Brunner, Piaget, and Papert. Discovery learning has many key advantages, such as this encourages motivation, active involvement, and creativity. It can be adjusted to the learner's pace. It promotes autonomy and independence, and it ensures higher levels of retention. However, from the research of Robert J. Marzano in 2011, discovery learning has been leveled up into enhanced discovery learning. It is a process that involves preparing the learner for the discovery learning task by providing the necessary knowledge needed to successfully complete the said task. In this approach, the teacher not only provides the necessary knowledge required to complete the task, but also provides assistance during the task. This preparation of the learner and assistance may require some direct instruction from the teachers. For example, before asking students to consider how best to stretch the hamstring muscle in cold weather, the teacher might present a series of lessons that clarify basic facts about muscles and their reaction to changes in temperature. So it is important for this enhanced discovery learning that the teacher will going to check the misconceptions regarding of the topic to assist the students' learning also. And when to use learning strategies. So here, there are different situations wherein we can integrate the different learning strategies in our lessons. For example, if the teacher seeks to increase students' learning by having the students work cooperatively to research, share, evaluate, and synthesize new content into group products demonstrates their learning, the best method is cooperative learning. So the potential technology or media is students meet free online collaboration tools such as Google Docs and other applications. Students may use online applications, spreadsheets to enter information about what they have learned together. So this is a best reflection of what Dr. James Paglinawan incorporated in our subjects that we have given a chance to give the points to our classmates and a benchmarking of what are the things needed to be discussed or needs to improve. And this is a cooperative learning strategist. Thank you, James. Thank you, Dr. James, for that. And if the teacher wants students to discover key concepts to install deeper levels of understanding, the strategy to use is discovery. So the potential technology is students create digital concept maps to discover relationships among new information. Students download weather data sets into spreadsheets to discover how weather is predicted. So it is not easy to incorporate learning strategies in our lessons, but we must remember that in designing the instructional materials for our learners, there are also things we need to consider. Okay, learning context in today's classroom. This is before the pandemic and we are used of face-to-face instruction, and before we will have our deliberation of our lesson, we will going to employ our classroom management, and We used to have the access to learning science centers such as libraries and others. We do exhibits and the integration of manipulative objects in our lessons, such as real objects, models, and mock-ups. So that is before the pandemic. However, when COVID-19 strikes and it is a mandatory to close all of the schools to prevent the spread of the virus, distance learning has been utilized by the educational sector. And we are going to discuss structured independent study. This is based on the idea that your students can learn information and acquire skills without the teacher's direct instruction. However, when doing this structured independent study, you must prepare an independent study context using materials you have selected or developed yourself. So it should be as easy as 1, 2, 3 for the learners. However, easy doesn't mean you will let your students just give a shallow information. However, we will also need to integrate the higher order thinking skills, because despite the pandemic that we are experiencing right now, education needs to continue and life needs to go on. Non-structured informal study. So what is this? It is the name given to learning that unstructured and takes place away from traditional formal learning settings like a classroom. It has no clear goals or set objectives as it's often unplanned and self-directed by the learner. So how this unstructured learning takes place? For example, you are reading a book and a word pops out that you don't understand. If you Google it and discover its meaning, you've learned something, but it was unplanned. Or you're playing a game with a friend and they give you advice on how to become a better player. Again, you've learned something even though it was unintentional. There was no specific program to follow, no tests or subjects assigned. It happens spontaneously or asynchronously. And even though the learner may not have been aware of it, it's learning nonetheless. The benefits. It is a learner-driven and self-directed. Sorry for the typical error. Learner-driven and self-directed. Second, it collates value resources for employees. Employees refers to the teachers, because teachers also needs to integrate learning in some materials. For example, if the teacher needs to inculcate reading into the learners, in Def Ed, we used to have a reading time to allow the non-readers to exercise the reading and comprehension. So the teachers here, referring to the employees, needs to give resources for the learners, resources that are age appropriate and ability appropriate. For example, there is a kid who cannot read wikang pambansa or Tagalog. So you would not give him an English book, but you need to give him a simple series of reading materials such as Abacada or the simple ones. And third, offer social learning. And fourth, allocate time to learn. And integrating free and inexpensive materials. With the ever increasing cost of instructional materials, teachers should be aware of the variety of materials they may obtain for classroom use at little or no cost. Limitations of free and expensive materials. We will go back with the advantages of free and expensive materials. The first one is up-to-date. Free and inexpensive materials from online resources can provide current information that's found in textbooks or other media. And in-depth treatment. Subject-specific materials typically provide in-depth information or topic. Variety of uses. Students can access open source applications outside of school. Audiovisual materials can be used for self-study or for representation to the class. Posters, charts, and maps can be combined to create topical displays. And student manipulation. Materials that are expendable have the extra advantage of allowing learners to get actively involved with them. They can also scan printed information and visuals to import into digital products, such as what Ma'am Claire did in our book. She scanned the book, and the informations in that book was imported into digital products. However, there are several limitations of free and inexpensive materials. First is bias or advertising. Many free and inexpensive materials are produced and distributed by particular organizations. These organizations, whether private corporations, nonprofit associations, or government agencies, often have a message to convey. Carefully preview materials to ensure they are appropriate for classroom use. Promotion of special interest. Some materials do not contain advertising but do promote a special interest in a less obvious way. Soliciting materials on a topic from a variety of sources can help provide different points of view. And limited quantities. With the increasing expense of producing and shipping printed materials, supplier may limit the quantities available at one time. You may not be able to obtain a copy for every student in class. And how these free and inexpensive materials is integrated in our instructional materials. The materials that you obtain through free and inexpensive sources can be used just like you would use in any classroom resource because they often have distinct focus or topic. So sources for free and inexpensive materials, we can have it from business organizations, community nonprofit organizations, the government agencies, museums, police and fire departments, public broadcasting, public company, libraries, utility companies, weather broadcast, and websites. Obtaining free and inexpensive materials. Most classroom materials are available in a format that they can easily be downloaded from providers, such as DEP and Tambayan at FB for different educational resources. However, we have here the commons wherein we can download for free the readily available materials for our class. And evaluating free and inexpensive materials. As with all types of materials, evaluate the educational value of free and inexpensive materials critically. Use appropriate rubric for the type of media. Some are very sleek or technically well presented, but not educationally sound. Use the appropriate selection rubric for the type of media, such as web sources, video, or others. All the selection rubrics should be carefully made for the learners. The Assure lesson plan. So, first part of this Assure lesson plan is we need to analyze the learners, such as the general characteristics of the learners, the age, the income status of the family, the gender, the ability to read and comprehend. And For example, Miss Kaiser and Miss Marshall's fifth grade students are mixed ethnicities and from middle income homes. They are fairly equally distributed with regard to gender and are all 10 years old. All students are reading at above grade level and students' behavior problems are minimal. So that is the general characteristics when it comes to age, income status of the family, and the ability to read and comprehend. Another part is early competencies. The fifth grade students are in general able to follow the tasks required to complete the lesson activities. So you will going to check the prior skills of your students. Can they conduct an internet search? Can they create and save word processing documents? Can they create and save documents with publishing software? Or can they use graph paper? So these are the early competencies of the children needs to be checked by the instructional material designer. And letter C, learning differences and needs of students because no size fits all. Students' level of interest and motivation increases when working as a team to win a competition. The students vary in style with which they prefer to demonstrate their learning. For example, when creating the boat advertisement, some students prefer to write the content, whereas others choose to select and arrange photos and images to express their ideas. So here comes a differentiated learning should be also integrated because different learners has different learning styles. And part 2, state the standards and objectives. And first is curriculum standards. Here in the Philippines, the curriculum standards is set by the Department of Education depending on the subject. But however, each subject is integrated with literacy skills, the prior knowledge, cognitive development, and higher order thinking skills, or the HOTS. B, technology standards. Students use research skills to locate and use relevant information. Students organize and evaluate data to solve problems. So this should what the students be set for the technology standards. And C, learning objectives. So example of learning objectives as connected from as connected from analyzing the learner's general characteristics. One is given internet resources and drawing materials, pairs of fifth grade students will design a boat appropriate for challenges faced by the Lewis and Clark during the expedition. Second objective is using the student-created boat design, pairs of students will create an advertisement for their Lewis and Clark boat that clearly defines the reasons why it fulfills the requirements of suitability for the Lewis and Clark expedition. Third, using the student-created boat design, pairs of students will write a persuasive letter to the president of a boat manufacturing company about why their Lewis and Clark boat should be produced by the company. So in making the learning objectives, it should be contextualized depending on what is the need of the learners, what is the need to learn by the learners, and what should be the learners be gaining from the activity. And third, select strategies and resources. And how? For example, I have here the situation, Miss Kaiser and Miss Marshall select 4 student-centered strategies: discussion, the problem solving, the discovery, and cooperative learning. Examples include working in cooperative pairs to complete the web quest, conducting internet searches for information boats used by Lewis and Clark, designing the boat, and creating an advertisement to sell the boat, and writing a letter to the president of a boat manufacturing company. Select resources. This lesson involves student use of internet-connected computers, the Lewis and Clark Web Quest, an internet browser to locate information about boats, publishing software to create the advertisement, library resources, and word processing tools to write the letters. Students might also need access to a scanner to copy paper-based photos for their advertisements, and the following guidelines were used to assess resource appropriateness. So it should be that the facilitator will also going to check the availability of the resources. For example, if you are teaching in a far-flung area and you have the promising style of teaching and integrating the technology, however, those resources are not available. So you can have the option to turn some resources available in your community instead of doing the promising internet connected computer based activities. So it depends upon the availability of the resources, and we teachers are also innovators, so we can also integrate technology, available technology in our community. Remember, instructional material designers align to standard outcomes and objectives. Example is, I have here the sample situation, the web quest, internet and library resources, and production software. This is a publishing and word processing software. Provide the necessary tools for students to meet the learning objectives. And mind you, the students in this situation is a fifth grader. So facilitators, we need to provide the materials if the students cannot afford it, if you have it in your school. So perhaps we can use those. As I've said a while ago, if the materials are not available during this pandemic, if the materials are not available in the community of our students, we can have the option of making the activity with the resources available in their community. Accurate and current information. Student will access multiple resources of Lewis and Clark information, which will allow the students to cross-check content accuracy. Current information may be used for new ideas on building handmade boats with tools available at the time. And make sure age-appropriate language. The web quest is written at an appropriate level of fifth grade students. The teacher may need to assist with interpretation of some web-based resources. Interest level and engagement. The combined use of the web quest, the both design and the advertisement competition will keep students' interest and engagement at a high level. So we need to sustain the motivational factors and the interest, the engagement of students to make this experience and learning worth for the students. And later on, they can apply in the real world and they can experience. This is a great opportunity for them to learn. And as well as the teachers, this is also a great opportunity for the teachers to be more explorative regarding of integration of technology in designing the instructional materials. And the fourth is utilize resources. First is you need to preview resources. I have here a situation. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall preview the web quest and other application to list relevant resources. B, prepare the resources. The teacher prepares the lesson instructions and rubrics for the both, the design, the letter, and advertisement. They add the link and internet resources and information on the class web page. So let's have letter C, prepare the environment. As you can see, the different environment has been posted in this PowerPoint presentation. The first picture is parents with the children and the radio and the laptop as used by the learners. So in preparing the environment for the learners, I have here an example. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall check the classroom laptops to ensure that internet connections are functional and the publisher software is loaded in all machines. For us here in the Philippines, when we talk about prepare the environment, while the COVID-19 struck out our education process sectors, the learner's environment had been transferred to homes, or the learning space has been their homes. So for us teachers, for us parents, we need to secure that even though learning takes place in our homes, we need also to secure the conducive area for learning, assisted by the parents if the learners are graders, the elementary graders, and it should be that during the online session for the learners, let's consider the stressing factors such as the online connectivity, the availability of materials to ease the stress of the students. If the students has no availability of those mentioned materials or connectivity, we can opt to have the modular and prepare the learners. I have here Teacher Kaiser and Teacher Marshall provide a brief overview of history to provide context for learners about expedition of Lewis and Clark. They ask students to share personal boating experiences and projects in which they designed or built a model and provide learning experience. Teachers begin the class by presenting a brief introduction to Lewis and Clark and historical background. They then present the boat competition challenge and explain how the lesson activities are structured. Requires learner participation. So student practice the activities. The student in Miss Kaiser's and Miss Marshall's class use computers, the internet, and word processing and publishing software to complete their work assignments. Each student individually completes the Lewis and Clark web quest. Students then join their partners and conduct research using the different applications. And feedback. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall provide ongoing feedback to students as they conduct internet and library information searches, draft beginning boat designs, and write the first drafts of their letters to the boat manufacturer. Students use the rubrics. So we will going to have the rubrics in the next section for these three products to check progress and focus of the work. And evaluate and revise. Assessment for learner and assessment for learner assessment. So why is this assessment of learner assessment? So each students are given the freedom to give their grade to their classmates. However, upon giving their grades, the rubrics should be considered and it should be discussed prior to the beginning of the activity so the students may enlighten what they should be what should they consider in giving the assessment. So I have this situation. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall use rubrics to assess each team's final boat design. And as I have mentioned earlier, students are also given the freedom to evaluate, to assess their classmates' output. And evaluation and strategies and resources. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall evaluate the strategies, technology, and media. Evaluation of the lesson strategies involves reviewing the students' final product to determine the degree to which students have met the learning objectives. They also engage in continuous communication with the students to learn what is working and identify areas of needed improvement. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall regularly communicate with the school's technology support staff regarding technology upkeep and problems. And revision. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall review the information collected from evaluation of the lesson strategies, technology, and media. The evaluation shows that the Lewis and Clark web quest was an excellent source of information to guide the remaining boat design activities. However, students struggled with writing the persuasive letter. Ms. Kaiser and Ms. Marshall revised the lesson to include a review and practice for writing persuasive letters. So this is now the main concern of Teacher Kaiser and Teacher Marshall, that they have observed that the students has difficulty in writing the letters. So for the next lesson, they will going to integrate the writing of persuasive letters as based from the first conducted activity shows that the students has a difficulty in writing the letters. So thank you. And this ends my report. And we will going to answer the questions later on. Question that has been given by our classmates. And God bless.